My relationship with Kailey Campbell was as dreadful as this interview was disastrous. The woman who ruined my entire high school life, 7 years later, turned out to be my interviewer, and I just thought she was extremely beautiful? I must have been blind. Later, she stood in front of me in a white wedding dress, her beautiful eyes glancing around, smiling charmingly. She asked, "Do I look good?" I swallowed hard and nodded. How wonderful. Such a beautiful person became my wife. Ding. Story Shots reminds you to click the subscribe button at the bottom right corner to read the full novel. 2 men and 1 woman, 3 interviewers sat across from me. From what I gathered, they wanted me to turn a bunch of steel pipes into a mahogany sofa. I resisted the urge to retort and looked at them. The woman had her hair in soft waves, her skin was fair, and she wore thin-framed gold glasses. Her small nose was quite adorable, contrasting sharply with the exaggerated curves on her chest. Her taste wasn't great, but she was indeed beautiful. I thought maliciously, no wonder they say embrace all rivers, be tolerant to diversity. Seeing me staring at her, she quickly glanced at me and then lowered her head, pretending to play with her phone. Strange, why did she seem even more nervous than I was? The more I looked, the more familiar she seemed. Very familiar. It was like a thin bubble was covering her face, and if I just dared to poke it, I could see her true face. She quietly glanced at me again, and seeing I was still staring at her, she hurriedly put down her phone and pretended to pick at her nails. I suddenly stood up and pointed at her. What the heck? Kailey Campbell. She also stood up abruptly, stammering, What are you doing? Don't do anything rash. Old grievances and new hatred surged in my heart as I walked towards her. Don't do anything rash? Maybe it was the fierce look on my face, but the man in the middle reached out to stop me. What are you doing? He then turned to her and asked, Kailey, do you know him? She clutched her chest, took a step back, and nodded timidly. Well, after 7 years, she's pretending to be a lady now? Where was the roughness when she slammed me to the ground back then? Where was the boldness when she kicked me to pieces back then? In high school, I was a good student who loved to draw and kept to myself. I had 2 unforgettable female classmates. One was Odette Young, the other was Kailey Campbell. Odette was very beautiful, and I liked to secretly draw her. Later, that stack of sketches was snatched away by Fletcher Cheney, who held it high up. Let me see who you're drawing. In an instant, a group of people surrounded us, and I had no power to squeeze in and retrieve my sketchbook. They flipped through it page by page, looking at the girl staring out the window, the one with a sweet smile. Every drawing was of the same girl. In the end, they all looked at Odette Young. She was at a loss, her face turned red, and she lay on her desk, avoiding eye contact. My heart sank. The secret crush that should have ended quietly was now exposed, laid bare for everyone to see. I walked home with my head down, stepping on my shadow. Hey, Jedediah Wilson. A soft, cotton candy-like voice came from behind, and Odette Young followed me with a smile. Sorry. I apologized with my head down, feeling guilty for dragging her into this. Give me the sketchbook. She stretched out her slender fingers, which looked almost transparent in the twilight. I hurriedly took out the sketchbook, and she hugged it to her chest, hummed lightly, then turned and walked away. Suddenly, she looked back and smiled at me. You draw well. I like it. Watching her swaying ponytail, I felt like I was floating, and my youthful emotions grew wildly. Unfortunately, Kailey Campbell shattered those feelings with one slap. Kailey was the sports commissioner, with short hair and excellent basketball skills. She had even represented the school in competitions. Probably because she was strong and powerful, she particularly hated literary things. Any comics I drew for my classmates, if they ended up in her hands, would be crumpled into a ball and thrown into the trash. After the sketchbook incident, she sat on my desk, her domineering stance making me shiver. Big artist, since you have so much free time, draw a few for me too. Then she jumped off the desk and made a classic yet greasy air basketball shot. Due to her constant outdoor training, her skin was darker, and her eyebrows were full of heroic spirit. At that time, I liked fair-skinned, fresh, and delicate girls and didn't know how to appreciate the beauty of vitality. I shook my head and said, "I can't draw you." Her left eyebrow raised slightly. "What do you mean? You draw pretty well, don't you?" I couldn't possibly tell her she wasn't good-looking enough to draw. She had high prestige among the girls, and offending her would be courting death. I made an excuse that I only knew how to draw faces, not bodies. "Fine, if you won't draw, then run the 1,600 meters in the school sports meet. There's no boy from our class signed up. Utterly useless." She winked at Odette Young. "Utterly useless, right?" Odette chuckled, and Fletcher Cheney and the others started jeering. I got carried away. "Fine, I'll run." That run landed me in Kailey Campbell's trap. After the 1,600-meter race, I became a well-known social dead person at school. That's him. The idiot who fainted after running 1,600 meters. Impressive. 1,600 meters is harder than 3,000 meters. Even the athletes don't dare to try. The funniest part was when a girl went to help him, and he threw up on her shoes. Unfortunately, that girl they were talking about was Odette Young. Odette Young started to politely distance herself, and I no longer saw her shy yet gentle smile directed at me. All of this, I had to thank Kailey Campbell's ill intentions for. She absolutely knew that I would definitely make a fool of myself. I was full of resentment and completely at odds with Kailey Campbell. I drew a serialized comic of a humanoid T-Rex girl playing basketball, and a few days later, high-definition photos of me fainting and vomiting circulated throughout the school. Damn it. She even secretly took photos of me. I carried her bicycle to the men's restroom and hid it. The next day, my bicycle was hung up in a tree. Things like this happened countless times. My entire high school years were almost entirely spent in conflicts with her. As the college entrance exams approached, she said it was boring and suggested we make peace. I glared hatefully at this vicious woman who had embarrassed me for 2 years and gritted my teeth, saying, "Duel. A manly fight. Fine." She agreed without hesitation. As a result, in the empty indoor basketball court, she floored me with a shoulder throw. She sat on top of me, her arm pressing against my neck, staring at me teasingly, and asked, "Do you give up?" My face turned red, and I struggled fiercely. She also used more strength, and our breathing became heavy. Her breath hit my face. It was actually a sweet strawberry scent? How could a tomboy smell like strawberries? I was left with a psychological shadow, and from then on, I developed a strong aversion to all strawberry-flavored foods. In a fit of rage, I wrapped my legs around her waist, flipped her over, and sat on top of her, breathing heavily on her face. "You're unkind. Don't blame me for being unjust. I had eaten garlic and chive dumplings." She widened her eyes in disbelief, and for a moment, I felt her gaze go blank. She admitted defeat, stood up, straightened her clothes, and asked if I was satisfied. I grabbed her by the back of the neck and pressed her down. "From now on, you're my little brother." To my surprise, grabbing her by the neck seemed to be her weak spot. Her whole body went soft, and she repeatedly begged for mercy. After discovering her weak spot, I enjoyed a brief period of glory, and she became an obedient little brother. For my college application, she even seriously researched and analyzed, finally settling on furniture design. Her earnest persuasion almost moved me to shake her hand in thanks. However, the facts proved that a traitor is always a traitor, and not worth trusting. On the afternoon of the graduation photo shoot, I searched everywhere and finally found Odette Young. I thickened my face and went over, wanting to take a solo photo with her. She hesitated for a long time, then nodded. I casually placed one hand in my pocket, slightly tilted my body, and curled the corner of my mouth on the left side. To be honest, dressed in this white shirt and black pants, I consider myself worthy of the word handsome. Moreover, I had practiced this pose repeatedly in front of the mirror at home, determined to leave behind a perfect photo of the youth that I once had. Just when I was feeling pleased with myself, An irresistible force hit my lower back, and I was sent flying, landing face first on the ground. The photo was captured. Kailey Campbell shouted, "Idiot!" By the time I got up, she had already disappeared, leaving only a footprint on my clothes. Fletcher said, "Just now, Kailey gave you a flying kick." Odette Young covered her mouth, laughing as she walked away. When you are extremely angry, you become exceptionally calm. I realized that anything involving Kailey Campbell would only bring endless trouble. I blocked her out completely, ignoring her no matter how much she jumped around. I finally found peace. After graduating from university, I joined a furniture factory. It was nothing like the elegance I had imagined of being a designer. With a hard hat on my head and a measuring tape clipped to my waistband, I walked back and forth between the office and the workshop. Because of the process flow, I sometimes ended up in physical altercations with the workshop masters. By the end of the day, I often returned to the dormitory covered in wood shavings. Exhausted and overworked, the salary was still worrying, and the Leica camera set I had been dreaming of was still far from my reach. The funniest part was my mom and dad. When I was in university, they guarded me strictly, not allowing me to date. After I started working, they even threatened that if I dared to date, I might as well die outside. Come on, this is a remote industrial area, and the furniture factory is full of guys. Girls? Love? Career? Just fleeting clouds. I suddenly realized that when Kailey Campbell shattered my dreams, she not only crushed my lost youth but also my future and love. This year, my parents suddenly gave me an ultimatum. Quit your job immediately, come home for a blind date, or be kicked out of the family tree. I handed in my resignation, and under the reluctant gazes of my colleagues, I left the industrial zone. However, when I got home, my mom mysteriously said that I came back too late. The girl had waited too long and left, which left me speechless. After lounging at home for a few days, I received an interview invitation with excellent benefits, so I went. Never in a million years did I expect that after 7 years, I would run into Kailey Campbell again, and she was here to interview me. What a joke. My eyes must be playing tricks on me for thinking she looked extremely beautiful just now. The male interviewer came out and tried to push me back. I swatted his hand away. "Get lost. This is none of your business." Kailey Campbell hurriedly called out, Fletcher, you guys go out first. I need to talk to him." Fletcher Cheney, with his slicked back hair, a handsome young man, was still poking my chest with his finger. "I'm warning you, don't cause trouble, or else don't blame me for being rude." Kailey Campbell was afraid I would actually start a fight with him, so she quickly pushed him out the door, saying, "It's okay. There's just a bit of misunderstanding between us." Misunderstanding? I truly laughed. I grabbed her by the back of the neck. "Come on, let's talk about our misunderstanding. These past 7 years, I've been grinding my teeth every night thinking about it." Just like before, she immediately went limp and begged for mercy. Let go, let go, let go of me." I released her, and we stared at each other, sizing each other up. It's often said that girls change a lot in 18 years. She must have changed 72 times. She spoke softly. "Long time no see, Jedediah Wilson. Why are you back?" I replied irritably. "Thanks to you, I was forced to come back for a blind date." "What does your blind date have to do with me? This damned profession. Can't even meet a girl." She chuckled lightly, a mischievous glint flashing in her eyes. "Come work at our company. Lots of pretty girls." I patted my pants, ready to leave. "Forget it. I don't want to see you again. 15,000 a month." I paused mid-step. This salary in this small town, if not the best, is more than enough. 20,000. I hesitated and struggled, but still got up to leave. Sticking around this bad luck, no amount of money would be worth it. 30,000. I sat back down, straightening my position. "You say 30,000? Just like that? Is the company yours?" She glanced outside the door, then leaned in and whispered, "It's mine, but keep it a secret. No one else knows. A man must know what to do and what not to do." but taking Kailey Campbell's money is definitely something to do. On my first day at work, I tidied myself up, with a samurai ponytail and a fitted work uniform. Not bad, not bad. A bit of elegance in my unruliness. I smiled at the mirror. Perfect. If I don't charm a few ladies, I'll write my last name upside down. Forget the blind dates. Just go for it. This time, Kailey Campbell didn't lie to me. There were indeed many beautiful women in the company. Of course, if they didn't have wedding rings on their hands. I was at a loss among a group of flamboyant women. They surrounded me, tugging at my ponytail, pinching my shoulders. Wow, handsome boy, you're really good looking. Little handsome guy, your arms are quite firm. Kailey Campbell stood at a distance, chuckling to herself. It wasn't until a woman lifted my shirt to check for abs that she came over to disperse the crowd. My face darkened. I felt like I never learned my lesson. How could I trust a troublemaker? Promised a beautiful girl, but it turned out to be a bunch of rowdy women. After work, Kailey Campbell blocked my way. Come on, let me treat you to dinner. I glared at her fiercely, and she immediately became nervous. The $30,000 a month you promised, is it real? She patted her chest, saying it was clearly written in black and white. I looked at her girlish gesture with disdain. Don't always act like someone who can be easily bullied. You're not cut out to pretend to be a lady. I turned to leave, but she tugged at my hair, causing me to stumble and nearly fall. Ha! Her true nature is revealed. I rolled up my sleeves, ready to fight, but she still smiled gently. 7 years, and you're still like a little kid who explodes at the slightest touch. The boss is treating you to dinner. Can't you show some respect? We ate hot pot. For once, she played the good person, mixing sauces and cooking meat for me. I was curious. Wasn't she a sports major? How did she end up running a design company? She tilted her head to look at me, her soft curls cascading down, looking obedient and sweet. There's no rule that you have to work in the field you studied, right? Through the steamy fog of the hot pot, her face appeared a bit blurry. Surprisingly, she looked somewhat pretty. I stared at her blankly, her dark face and spirited eyebrows from high school alternating with the fair face and soft brows before me. I felt a chill. Wow, are all women born actors? She raised her cup. Using tea instead of wine, I formally apologized to you. I mocked. Back then, you kicked me so hard I fell flat on my face. I can't be as carefree as you. Sorry. Listening to her heartfelt apology and seeing her lowered head, I was stunned for a while, suddenly feeling disinterested. I poured out the tea from her cup. Replace it with liquor, and we'll be brothers, no hard feelings. Her eyes lit up. She eagerly ordered a bottle of Jen and Chun, filled her cup, and downed it in one go. Her boldness was impressive. I also downed my cup. All right, Kailey Campbell, this meal is on me. Our grudges are settled. From now on, we go our separate ways and never meet again. The smile on her face disappeared instantly. What do you mean? If the salary is too low, I'll raise it. How about 40,000? I felt a bit bewildered. In this small town, hiring a designer for 30,000 was already exaggerated. I agreed to her offer yesterday just to mess with her. I explained, I'm back for a blind date. Once that's settled, I'm leaving. She took out a contract from her bag and waved it triumphantly. Too late. The contract clearly states you have to work at the company for 3 years. If you breach it, you owe 10 times the compensation. My mind was full of questions. Even if my family owned a mine, there's no need to rush to give money, right? Kailey Campbell's company mainly handled exhibition wine cabinets for foreign trade. Clients pursued eye-catching appearances, not caring much about materials as long as they were sturdy and durable. Thinking back, I misunderstood them during the interview. Kailey Campbell held a position in HR, diligently watching dramas and playing games in her small office every day. Most of the women in the company were translators and order handlers. When I worked at the furniture factory, my nostrils were filled with wood dust. Now all I could smell was perfume. In my days, I became interested in studying the various wine cabinets. However, within 5 days of starting, I was being worked like a spinning top. My boss was Fletcher Cheney, rumored to be a Cambridge genius, holding the director position. He seemed intent on showing off, bombarding me with emails like a Gatling gun, nitpicking every proposal I submitted. Basic requirements that could pass in one go had to be revised 3 or 4 times. After changing the line color, he'd say the font color was wrong, adding comments about how inefficient I was as a nepotism hire. As a result, I was glued to my computer until 9 p.m. for 2 consecutive nights. Just as I was fully focused, a ghostly voice suddenly sounded in my ear, scaring me so much that I threw my mouse. "Are you very busy?" I almost cursed it out loud. "Lady, can you make some human noise?" Kailey Campbell stuck out her tongue, her seemingly cute expression giving me an even bigger chill. "Stop, stop, stop. Before I lose my professional ethics. Get lost and don't disturb me." She curiously watched the computer for a while, then directly reached out to turn it off. "Time to clock out. Let me treat you to a drink." I immediately got flustered. "Are you crazy? I didn't save my work." She looked indifferent. "No problem. Just push some of your tasks to tomorrow. You'll end up doing less anyway." I suspiciously stared at her. "What do you mean? First you hit me, then you give me candy? Aren't you just trying to mess with me? Haha, you didn't expect this, did you? This stuff is a piece of cake for me. It just takes time." She was stunned for a moment, then thoughtfully and helplessly smiled. "Jedediah Wilson, can't you think better of me?" "No." "So, are you coming for a drink or not?" "No." She turned and walked away. "What a pity. I was just about to tell you some news about Odette Young." This was the first time I ever gossiped in my life. The lights were dim in the cozy bar, and the music was soothing. I poured some fruit wine into Kailey Campbell's glass ingratiatingly. "Sis, tell me more." But she kept dodging the topic, asking about my experiences over the years. Finally, she started talking. Odette Young got married abroad after graduating from university and just returned last year. I heard she got divorced. I was speechless. I hadn't even been in a relationship, and she had already been through a marriage and a divorce. I remembered that dusk when she smiled back at me while holding a sketchbook, her silhouette almost transparent in the evening light. Kailey Campbell leaned over and asked, "What's wrong? Feeling sad? Do you want her WeChat? You still have a chance." I shook my head and sullenly downed a few more drinks. We had nothing to talk about and just drank in silence. She even took photos and posted them on her social media. I became wary. "Hand over your phone." "What for?" She refused to give it, so I sneered, grabbed her by the back of the neck, and snatched the phone. As soon as I opened the album, there were pictures of me drinking. Scrolling further, sure enough, she had been secretly taking pictures of me during the interview. "Kailey Campbell, you never change, even now that you're a boss." She kept begging. "Let go first, I won't do it again. Let go. It's so embarrassing." As we were tussling, a figure suddenly rushed over, grabbed Kailey Campbell, and scolded. "Kailey, why are you in a place like this?" It was Fletcher Cheney. His tone was filled with undeniable anger and concern. He then looked at me, eyes full of rage and disdain. Seeing his expression, it seemed like he had a close relationship with Kailey Campbell. I had no intention of getting entangled with him, so I got up to leave. He blocked me. "Wilson, bringing a woman to a nightclub. I despise people like you the most." I shoved him away. "Get lost. Don't act like a big shot after work." He still wouldn't give up, blocking my way and babbling on. He said I got into the company through connections and that he wasn't afraid of someone like me. If I kept pestering Kailey, he'd get me fired. I looked at him amusedly. "Then please, fire me." Kailey Campbell got anxious, breaking free from his grip. "What nonsense are you talking about? I brought him here." Fletcher Cheney clearly didn't believe it. He even asked if she had any dirt on her and advised her not to be afraid, that I couldn't bully her. He was being overly dramatic. I didn't care where his hostility towards me came from. Anyway, I didn't like him much the first time I saw him. Seeing him playing the protector, the more I looked, the more annoyed I got. As I brushed past him, I suddenly bumped into his shoulder. He got furious and reached out to push my head. I dodged sideways and elbowed him in the chest. He staggered back a few steps, his face flushed, and tried to lunge at me again. Haha, great. Ever since high school graduation, every time I thought about the humiliation of being pinned down by Kailey Campbell, I felt both ashamed and indignant. I bought a punching bag and dumbbells and trained hard. I'm not scared at all. Kailey Campbell was genuinely anxious now and pulled Fletcher Cheney. Why did you come here? I saw your social media post about being in a nightclub. I was worried, and it turns out this loser tricked you here. I'll teach him a lesson. Seeing his face twisted in pain, still yelling about teaching me a lesson, couldn't help but laugh inside. Indeed, some people are like ducks. Their whole bodies can be soft, but their mouths can't. I turned and left. Kailey Campbell chased after me, apologizing nonstop, asking me not to be angry. I waved her off. All right. Nothing good ever comes from being around you. Fletcher Cheney was relentless, grabbing Kailey Campbell's arm. Kailey, you really don't need to be afraid of him. Kailey Campbell's eyes turned cold. Let go of my hand. Fletcher Cheney was stunned, probably never having seen her with that expression. Kailey, let go of my hand and stop following us. She tugged at my sleeve, apologetically saying, Jedediah, let's go. The next day, Fletcher Cheney, with a sour face, bounced all my emails back. Fuming, I stormed into his office to confront him. He just looked at his computer, not even lifting his head, and lightly said it was inappropriate. No reason given. If this were my old furniture factory, we would have had a fistfight by now, then tested who was right or wrong afterward. I actually kind of missed those straightforward and tough guys. For several days, his emails snowed in, filling my inbox with accusations. I paid attention to the timing. Some emails were deliberately held back, sent at just the right time. A time when I could finish the work, but would be quite rushed. I took a screenshot and sent it to Kailey Campbell. Boss lady, I don't think I can handle this job. She replied, wait a moment. Soon after, in the big group chat, that mysterious boss account spoke up. Notice, effective immediately, Jedediah Wilson's work will be directly assigned by me. Xiao Qiu and Xiao Lu will assist with translation. No one else is to interfere. Then at Fletcher Cheney, please take over and reassign the previously backlogged work of Jedediah Wilson. The entire office fell silent, and I was stunned. How should I put it? Although it confirmed the rumor of nepotism, this feeling was pretty damn satisfying. I quickly messaged Kailey Campbell, hey, can you proofread? Nope. So please make sure the work you hand me is completely correct. With work slowing down, I found myself with nothing to do. Kailey Campbell, afraid I'd get bored, kept trying to chat with me and even encouraged me to play games. Sometimes, she'd sneak downstairs to get takeout, and the two of us would hide in her office eating and playing. I couldn't help but tease, boss lady, you're a bit stingy, huh? Not even afternoon tea for the employees. She seriously explained, there are a lot of women in the company. We need to take care of their figures. They can't eat too many snacks. I scoffed, ready to mock her figure, but when I looked up, I saw her impressive curves and slender waist, so I shut my mouth obediently. That day, as usual, after finishing a game, we were getting ready to leave. Kailey Campbell asked me, remember Fletcher? He's organizing a class reunion. Are you going? I declined. Because of embarrassing high school memories after graduation, I wanted to live as a different person and hadn't kept in touch with any classmates. She teased with a playful smile, saying Odette Young would also be there. Didn't I want to see my old crush? I hesitated for a moment but still refused. I hadn't achieved much over the years, and going would just make me a laughingstock. For some reason, this made her laugh out loud. I glared at her angrily. She finally stopped laughing and dangled the keys to a BMW in front of me. I'll lend you the car. You can show off for once. You be the boss, I'll be the secretary. Going or not? I looked her up and down, and without a doubt, I was tempted. If I could turn that once vicious woman into my little secretary, drive a luxury car, and show up in front of those who once mocked me. The regrets and humiliations of high school seemed like they could be washed away. I suspiciously stared into her eyes. "You're not playing me, right? You won't set me up at the reunion, will you?" She raised her hand, seriously swearing she absolutely wouldn't. On the night of the reunion, when I picked up Kailey Campbell, I was genuinely stunned. She had light makeup on and was wearing an evening gown, exuding elegance and nobility. "Damn, Kailey Campbell. Looking like this, who could recognize you?" She blinked and asked, "So, boss, does this secretary look impressive?" I nodded repeatedly, shyly thanking her. She, however, frowned at me, directing me into a mall to change into a suit and leather shoes. One look at the price tag and I winced. Painful price. But after changing, I did look quite presentable, feeling torn inside about whether this show-off move was worth the cost. Kailey Campbell meticulously adjusted my sleeves and collar, praising, "See, now you look like a boss." Her fingers grazed my neck, sending shivers down my spine. She checked the time, made me sit down and redid my hair, even parting my bangs and ends carefully. All right, this show-off was set. Just as I was about to pay, the clerk informed me, "Sir, your partner has already paid." Haha. I was in a great mood and threw my arm around Kailey Campbell's shoulder. "Thanks, buddy. I'll pay you back later." She pushed me away and said irritably, "Who's your buddy? Hurry up and go." The farm where the gathering was held was vast, with fish ponds and flower beds perfectly arranged. Kailey Campbell walked half a step behind me, following closely, her high heels clicking on the ground. As we entered the hall, the surprised looks from everyone made me feel quite proud. Fletcher, who had gotten chubby, raised his glass to me and gave me a thumbs up. "Mr. Wilson, the tables have turned. You've even managed to tame the high school demon girl." I nodded indifferently. The reason for my aloofness was simple. Odette Young's seat was right next to mine. In fact, as soon as I walked in, I was looking for her. She sat in the corner, wearing a light blue dress and a blue headband, looking as innocent as a student. You would never guess she was a divorced woman. When we sat down, Fletcher thoughtfully moved Odette Young to the seat next to me. Facing my former crush, I mustered up the courage to say, "Long time no see." She covered her mouth and laughed lightly. "Mr. Wilson is so successful now. No wonder you haven't kept in touch with old classmates." She raised her glass to clink with mine, her fingers brushing against the back of my hand, making me nervous. Kailey Campbell was also surrounded by many people. She had always been highly respected in high school, and now that she had transformed from a crazy girl to a beauty, many male classmates were trying to show off in front of her. She wore a faint smile and didn't drink a drop of alcohol. Then she pretended to be annoyed and looked at me, saying she had to take her boss home later and couldn't drink, asking Mr. Wilson to drink for her. Seeing that she was giving me enough face, I relaxed and accepted all the drinks. If it weren't for my past experience drinking cheap homemade liquor with the guys, I probably would have collapsed by now. Midway through the drinking, Odette Young pushed her phone in front of me. It was her WeChat QR code. I felt a bit dazed. After graduation, she was the only classmate I had tried to contact, but she never responded to my friend requests. Now, she was proactively giving me her QR code. And throughout the entire event, no one mentioned the embarrassing incidents between Kailey Campbell and me in high school. I suddenly felt a sense of unreality, mixed with irony. As the conversation moved from school anecdotes to social status, networking, and collaborations, Kailey Campbell handled everything with ease. Only Odette Young, probably because of her unique experiences, walked out alone. I, drunk and dizzy, followed her out. I thought it would cause a laugh, but everyone pretended not to see. Odette Young stood in the corridor, staring at the sky. I stood next to her, thinking I had a lot to say or some inspirational speech to give, but all I managed was, "Life is a journey." The alcohol surged. Damn it. I hurriedly left and vomited lavishly over the sink, just like the 1,600-meter race in the school sports meet back then. I felt like I had instantly reverted to my clownish self. This time, Odette Young didn't scream or run away. She gently patted my back and worriedly said, "Don't drink so fast." A mix of feelings surged in my heart, making me feel terrible. After a while, Kailey Campbell came over and took me away from the farm. Walking on the path between the flower beds, the wind rustled the leaves. My nose stung, my eyes filled with tears, and I waved my hand in a daze. "Pay the bill, it's on me, pay the bill." She held me up, coaxing like a child. All right, it's paid, it's paid." When I woke up, I was in a hotel. In the chaotic fragments of memory, I refused to go home and said a lot of things, even shedding tears. Kailey Campbell drove me around the city in circles. I was touched, feeling sorry for her, and called her to thank her. The ringtone sounded, and the buzzing came from the bedside table. Kailey Campbell's phone? I was stunned, looking around. My suit was neatly hung in the wardrobe, but on the sofa, there was a small red bag. Damn. I stood at the bathroom door, trembling. "Kailey Campbell?" Mumbling sounds came from inside. She opened the door, biting her toothbrush, wearing a loose bathrobe, and the large expanse of white on her chest almost blinded me. Kailey Campbell was putting on makeup and muttering. "What do you mean, yelling like a ghost? You had one bed, I had another. I didn't take advantage of you. You drank like a dead man, and I was worried all night. You don't sleep well, always kicking the blanket." I was so embarrassed. My face turned red, and I kept saying thank you. At the end of the month, I got a notification that $30,000 had been deposited into my account. I was stunned and asked Kailey Campbell, "Are you serious?" She looked at me puzzled. "Is there a problem? If you want a raise, you'll have to wait until next month." My mind was full of questions. Either my abilities had been severely underestimated before, or this company was doing smuggling under the guise of design. Before I could speak, she frowned and said, "Come over quickly. There's a problem with the product, and the client wants compensation." I rushed over, and it turned out to be one of the wine cabinets I was responsible for. Its load-bearing capacity had an issue. After the client placed the exhibit, the support broke. I carefully examined the design diagram and located the support on the side of the wine cabinet. Cursing loudly, "Someone modified this part. It's 4 millimeters thinner. No wonder it broke." She comforted me, saying she believed I wouldn't make such a mistake. I thought for a moment and sneered. "What good is your belief in me? We still have to compensate." Was this Fletcher Cheney's doing? She shook her head, saying she wasn't sure. We either had to compensate or repair it. But if we chose to repair it, the shipping costs back and forth would be a huge loss as well. I was both anxious and angry, pulling her up from her seat, opening the software, and trying to find a solution while making modifications. Add a small steel floor flagpole on the side for support. That would solve the load-bearing issue. Plus, look, it improves the design and increases its uniqueness. Can you check if the client would accept this? An hour later, she shook my arm excitedly. "Jedediah Wilson, you're amazing." The client agreed. I smiled awkwardly. "Can you stop treating me like a child?" The problem was solved, but Fletcher Cheney's malice was something I couldn't tolerate. The only person who had the opportunity to modify my files was him. I wanted to confront him. Just as I stood up, Kailey Campbell pushed me back into my seat. "Look at you, acting like a child. Besides, he's the design director now, and I have a lot of work and clients under his control." I was burning with anger and confusion. Why did this idiot have such strong malice towards me? Kailey Campbell rolled her eyes and muttered, "Blockhead." I thought Kailey Campbell would handle it slowly, but she directly demoted Fletcher Cheney. He no longer pretended. He pulled over a chair, threw his resignation letter, and put his feet on the table, sneering. "Well, Wilson, it seems you have some strong backing with the boss. I'm done with this crappy company." He then adopted a posture as if he had tried to interact with us as a normal person but was met with estrangement, and he laid his cards on the table. "Let me reintroduce myself. I'm the president of Tianhong Corporation. Kailey, I actually joined this crappy company just for you. According to him, 2 years ago, he personally attended a talent recruitment fair where Kailey Campbell was also recruiting. He fell in love at first sight. The position Kailey Campbell was recruiting for matched his skills, and for the sake of love, he played the role of a boss looking for a job. Kailey, come with me. Over these 2 years, you know how serious I am about you. His deep affection left both of us stunned. Kailey Campbell furiously typed on the keyboard, finalizing his resignation. He left immediately. After work, a Bentley was parked at the company entrance. Fletcher Cheney sat in the car, waving at Kailey Campbell. Seeing she ignored him, he got out of the car and ran over, beaming, "Kailey, I wasn't lying to you. I'm sincere about you. Come with me. My company is much better than this place. You won't have to worry about being bullied." Of course, after saying this, he didn't forget to glance at me. Kailey Campbell impatiently raised her left eyebrow, startling me. I quickly stepped aside. I remembered that when she raised her left eyebrow, it meant her anger was at its peak, and then she might resort to physical action. But she just took a deep breath and spoke clearly. "First of all, the crappy company you mentioned is my hard work. Secondly, you modified the files without permission, causing damage to my company. Just because I'm not pursuing it doesn't mean you're not at fault. Lastly, bullying me? Jedediah Wilson, tell me, who dares to bully me? Do you dare?" Her tone was icy, and I nodded like a pecking chicken. Exactly. How could I possibly bully you?" Fletcher Cheney's mouth opened slightly, his face turning red, and he blurted out, "You know how much I like you. Enough. Stop acting like a drama queen and being infatuated with yourself. Jedediah, let's go." After a few steps, she stopped, turned back, and kicked him hard. Damn it, almost made me lose a lot of money. Consider this a warning. Don't harass me again, or don't blame me for being rude. I couldn't hold back and laughed out loud. Wasn't this the exact thing Fletcher Cheney had said to me before? Seeing he still wanted to argue, I shook my fist at him, and he had to leave dejectedly. Kailey Campbell glared at me. "What are you laughing at? Is it that funny? Now that there's no director, you're up." I quickly stopped laughing. No, I can't do this job." She kept walking. Useless. The next day, my office supplies were already moved to the director's office, and Kailey Campbell had moved her little nest in as well. People in the company were whispering. This feeling was so strange. Watching her lounging on the sofa watching dramas. I scratched my head for a long time before I couldn't help but say, "Damn, it feels like you're keeping me." She was stunned for a moment, her mouth twitching, holding back for a long time before saying, "What? Afraid people will say you're a freeloader?" I spat. "Even if I freeload, it wouldn't be off you." Seeing her struggling to hold back laughter, I sighed. "Kailey Campbell, you really don't have to do this." I said, "We've settled our scores. For the past 2 months, I've been picking on her and causing her trouble," but she had completely changed her attitude, always treating me with sweet words. As time went on, I started to feel a bit guilty. She even helped me make up for my high school regrets. I really had no reason to stay here any longer. All debts settled? You wish. How are you going to repay what you owe me? What do I owe you? I haven't touched a penny of your money. If you have the guts, don't refuse it." She threw down her tablet and said, "Jedediah Wilson, are you also bored with my crappy company? Or do you just not like me?" The more she talked, the angrier she got. She grabbed her coat and walked out the door. I quickly got up and pulled her back. Hey, don't talk nonsense. I just don't want to take advantage of you. You're paying me too much." She was both angry and amused. "I've never seen someone complain about a high salary before. You're really useless. Are you going to take this director position or not?" She had the same expression as when she urged me to run the 1,600 meters back in the day. She slammed the door and left. I went home feeling annoyed and complained to my parents. Either we continue with the blind dates or I'll just leave. Mom still had a mysterious look on her face, praising that girl to the skies and telling me to be patient. That evening, Kailey Campbell sent me a link to a design competition. She mocked me. "Didn't you always blame me for pushing you into studying furniture design? Prove your talent if you have the guts. Win the prize and I'll let you go." She successfully ignited my fire again. During the day, I worked for her. At night, I racked my brain trying to design. One afternoon, I received a surprising message from Odette Young, inviting me to dinner. She also sent me a set of photos of my high school sketchbook. I didn't expect her to still have it. The marks on the sketchbook seemed to penetrate time, and she, in that time, was bathed in a gentle light. She said, "I'm returning your sketchbook. Let's meet one last time. I won't be coming back again." I had no choice but to beg Kailey Campbell to lend me her BMW. She asked what I was going to do. I wanted to tell the truth, but when the words were about to leave my mouth, I felt inexplicably guilty and said a college friend was visiting, and I wanted to show off. She eagerly asked, "Can I come with you? I've never heard you talk about college." I awkwardly said it was inconvenient, and she snorted, throwing the keys at me. Odette Young chose a place by the river called Watercloud Pavilion. The restaurant's exterior was elegantly designed. In high school, I would occasionally come to sketch it, but I always knew it was expensive, so I never went inside. I sighed inwardly, knowing that once I started showing off, there was no turning back. Our table was by the window. She smiled lightly and pushed the sketchbook towards me. I opened it and looked carefully. It was indeed well preserved. She asked, "Did you like me in high school?" I looked at her calmly. Yes, I liked her a lot. She covered her mouth and laughed gently. The river breeze lifted the hair by her ear, making her look exceptionally gentle. We both tacitly chose to talk about the fun times from the past. I didn't ask why she avoided me after graduation or why she never accepted my friend requests on WeChat. I pushed the sketchbook back to her. She suddenly reached out and covered my hand. I was stunned for a moment. She also looked at me calmly. "Do you still like me now?" I quietly withdrew my hand and shook my head. "If you like the sketchbook, keep it. If not, throw it away." She looked disappointed and gazed at the vast river, talking about her failed marriage. I really wanted her to stop, not to mar the image of the girl in my memory. I took a sip of tea and turned my head, only to see Kailey Campbell standing at the staircase. She was dressed in a casual white hoodie and jeans, with a short-brimmed cap, exuding energy. Our eyes met. Oh no, could it be such a coincidence? Odette Young was still looking at the river, unaware that Kailey Campbell had come up. I anxiously waited for her to come over and cause a scene, but she looked at me for a while, expressionless, and then went downstairs. I took out my phone to explain to her, but received a red exclamation mark. With my mind in turmoil, Odette Young seemed to have finished her story, and with a self-deprecating tone said, "It seems Kailey is still deeply in love with you. She's still following you around to this day. She was always stubborn in high school. Once she set her mind on something, she wouldn't give up." Her words were like a bolt of lightning. I looked up and asked Odette, "What did you say?" She looked puzzled. "Even a fool could see she liked you a lot in high school." She then mockingly said with a sour tone, "Didn't you take her in as your secretary?" "Take her in as my secretary?" I was her secretary for 2 months. It was as if I had discovered an earth-shattering secret, but this secret was known to everyone except my foolish self. Odette, I have something urgent to deal with. You'll have to go back by yourself later." I dashed out, calling Kailey, but she hung up as soon as it rang. When I called again, her phone was off. Thinking back over the past 2 months, her blatant favoritism made my heart feel like it was stuffed with durian shells, both blocked and painful. I went back to the office. It was dark and she wasn't there. Just as I was getting anxious, my phone rang. Kailey Campbell's voice was icy cold. "Get your ass over here right now." I sighed in relief and replied with a cheeky grin, "Boss, you have to tell me where you are so I can get my ass over there. Don't you dare laugh. Just get over here now." I rushed to her place. She stood at the entrance of the villa. As soon as I got out of the car, she threw a bag at my head. "Here, take it. We're done." It was a small leather document bag. When I opened it, I found it full of the comics I had drawn in high school, which she had confiscated and crumpled into a trash bag. When did she secretly collect them all together? Did she carefully smooth out each wrinkle, bit by bit, at night? Seeing her about to go back inside, I ran over and grabbed her hand. She turned around and glared at me, her face already covered in tears. Get lost. I was anxious but couldn't find the right words, so I acted shamelessly. You still have to drive me home. It's so far. Without giving her a choice, I dragged her to the car. She kept a cold face the entire time. Although I felt a bit guilty, I couldn't hide the smile on my face. It was like finally solving a puzzle that had baffled me for 7 years. It turned out that during countless nights, as I recalled our grievances, what I thought was deep hatred was actually a constant longing. When we passed by a convenience store, I stopped the car. Wait for me. I'll buy something. She just stared out the window, ignoring me. Her face still had tear stains. That little girl look of hers was actually quite cute. Dare to go somewhere with me? Spit it out quickly and let's go home. I took her to the back gate of our high school and pointed at the wall. Dare to climb in? There was a gap in the wall. It had been there for 7 years, seemingly left on purpose by the school for students. She nervously looked around. I had already climbed up the wall and extended my hand to her. She muttered, "Are you crazy?" I smiled. Almost. "Do you want to come in?" She stamped her foot and gave me her hand. It was already 11 at night. The campus was quiet. Although she was a brave girl, she was now flustered and didn't even care about being angry. She obediently let me hold her hand as we wandered around the campus. I pointed at a tree. "Remember this tree? You hung my bike up there. After school, I had to climb up to get it. A lot of people were watching and you even cheered. Monkey climbing the tree. Monkey climbing the tree." And here we were sweeping up leaves in the morning, and we started a broom fight. We broke the brooms and got reported. I paid for the damage. She snorted softly. "Here, you kicked me so hard I fell flat on my face, even though I had struck such a cool pose." She burst out laughing. "And that final duel I actually lost. You threw me so hard I was dazed." She mocked. "Weakling. So, want to have another fight now?" She looked at the empty playground and was silent for a long time. "Forget it. It's pointless. In your eyes, I'll always be a tomboy." She silently walked along the white line of the court. I followed, stepping on her shadow in the moonlight. I really miss this place. It's my first time back since graduation. Everything seems the same, yet everything has changed. "You're leaving, right?" "I tore up the contract. I won't try to keep you. I always wanted to change the way you saw me. I wanted to be a proper lady. I'm not nearsighted at all. I wore glasses just to look more ladylike." As she spoke, she choked up. "I wanted to contact you in college to apologize, but you never responded. To avoid me, you even changed your number. I guess I really am a terrible person, a contradictory person. I wanted to bully you, but deep down, I wanted to be kind to you." I took out the candy I had just bought, strawberry flavored, and popped one in my mouth. I patted her shoulder. She turned around, her face again full of tears under the moonlight, making me feel both heartache and guilt. I hugged her, and her eyes widened instantly, reflecting the crescent moon in the sky. "Can you close your eyes for a moment?" She panicked, her voice as soft as a mosquito. "What are you going to do?" I kissed her lips. The sweet strawberry flavor filled my heart. Time is truly amazing. After 7 years, it felt like a full circle. The high school I once loathed had now become my most beautiful memory. Did she hold this hand? Kailey Campbell ferociously scrubbed my hand, using half a bottle of hand sanitizer, still rubbing vigorously. "Kailey." She suddenly came over. I couldn't avoid it. "I dressed up like a college student to make you proud, and you took my car to meet Odette Young." She got furious, and I cried out, "Stop, stop, you're breaking my fingers." "Are they really broken?" She fumbled around. "Does it hurt?" I'm sorry. I pulled her into my arms. "It doesn't hurt, it doesn't hurt. Compared to these years, it doesn't hurt at all. Her eyes filled with tears again. You can't say things like that. It'll make me cry. Reporting to the boss, there's a blind date tonight. I firmly refused, but my parents are threatening me. What should I do? Go. I stared at her suspiciously, worried she might say it was fine but then disappear at night. She brushed her hair in the mirror, completely indifferent. Actually, her features were already delicate, but she still loved to put on makeup. She pressed her lips together, which were a glossy peach pink, making my heart race. No, you must go. Don't make it difficult for uncle and aunt. Dress nicely. Then I'll just tell her straight away that I already have someone I love. I promise it won't take more than 2 minutes. In the end, I couldn't hold back the heat in my heart. I held her struggling hands and ended up with a mouthful of lipstick. Tying up my messy hair, I dug out old clothes from 2 years ago. Looking in the mirror, I thought, okay, with this shabby look, unless that girl is blind, it's definitely a no-go. Suddenly, I felt something strange inside. It seemed like every time I looked in the mirror, things would change. In the living room, my mom was beaming and kept saying, "This girl is really nice." I heard it so much that my ears grew calluses. "Mom, I've told you I'm in a relationship. You've seen the photos too. Do I really have to go?" My dad glared at me. "You don't go? Believe it or not, I'll break your legs." Mom grabbed my hand and urged me to leave quickly. The blind date venue was a dessert shop, and the smell of cream cake was so sweet it was cloying. I waited dejectedly for the girl, sending updates to Kailey Campbell, but she didn't reply to any of them. Suddenly, my mom stood up. "Oh dear, you're here." I looked up to see Kailey Campbell in a floral dress in front of me, her eyes full of mischief. I was dumbfounded as I watched my mom and Mrs. Campbell leave hand in hand. Kailey sat down and waved her hand in front of my eyes. Stunned. "Didn't I tell you to dress nicely? Weren't you going to tell her straight away that you have someone you love?" Wow. It's already been more than 2 minutes. I stared maliciously at her neck, and she instinctively shrank back. "Kailey Campbell, what's going on?" But this time, she was tough and wouldn't say a word. The next night, at the Fortune Cloud Tea House, both families met. My dad and Mr. Campbell hit it off immediately, sharing new fishing spots and catches. Mrs. Campbell asked my mom, "Last time, that water chestnut jelly was delicious. One for each of us." Kailey Campbell was all smiles, making tea for everyone. I was completely numb. Why did it feel like they were all so familiar, and I was the outsider? Back home, my mom laughed heartily and explained everything to me. "After you went to college, this little girl often came over to ask about you. Your dad really likes her. Says she's a brave and passionate girl." Later, both families met. Don't be fooled by her dad's gentle demeanor. Back in our youth, he was quite the celebrity. Your dad was worried for a while, afraid they wouldn't like us and that he might lose a daughter-in-law. I was full of questions. "Wait, when did you all meet?" "Let me think, probably your sophomore year." Hearing this, my legs went weak. No wonder she kept suppressing me, always writing reports about my life, year after year. This Mid-Autumn festival, your dad and I went to her house to deliver gifts. Her dad said, "Bring back that silly boy we've let roam outside." The little girl was too shy to agree and insisted on doing it herself. I pointed at myself. The silly boy roaming outside? When Kailey Campbell walked out of the dressing room, my eyes were glued to her. The wedding dress bloomed like a lily, making her look like a fairy. She walked slowly to me, twirled once, and asked with a playful smile, "Do I look good?" I swallowed hard and nodded. She was truly beautiful. How wonderful that such a beautiful person became my wife. The kerosene lamp cast a warm orange glow, illuminating the big red double happiness character. Kailey Campbell sat on the wedding bed, her face flushed. I pounced on her with a crazy yell. She flipped me onto the bed with a swift move, straddling me. She looked down at me with a bright and enchanting smile. Her soft arm wrapped around my neck. "Jedediah Wilson, do you submit?" I laughed out loud. I submit. She leaned close to my ear and whispered, "Humph, I just want to be on top.